When I Fall by Scarlet Emerald 32. Chapter 27.
Carol, you can let me go. I just landed wrong. My ankle barely hurts anymore.
Talisa pushed away from Carol to walk beside her as they began to catch up with the people from the kingdom who were slowly making their way through the woods. They got to the front of the group and saw Nabila and Henry looking down at a walker caught in a trap on the ground. Carol bent down and put a knife in its head to silence it.
It got tripped up on my wire. The cottage is just ahead, out of the tree line. It's got a wrought iron fence. There's food and water inside. The saviors don't know about it. You'll be safe there until I make it back with Ezekiel.
Nabila raised an eyebrow.
You versus all of them?
Yep.
They don't stand a chance.
Carol smiled appreciatively.
It's not just Carol. I'm going too.
Henry stepped forward, and Carol rolled her eyes slightly as she looked down at him.
No, you're not.
They killed my brother.
And I'm not going to let them kill you too.
I can do it. I can help you. Morgan taught me the stick and you taught me the guns.
It's not happening.
Carol crossed her arms, leaving no room for further discussion. Henry glared at her and then stomped off into the woods.
He's right about one thing, though. You're not going alone.
Oh, don't you start too. You're injured.
I'm fine.
Talisa hopped from one foot to the other to make a point.
It was a minor tweak, and it doesn't even hurt anymore. You want to talk about not starting again? How about you don't start acting like you have to do everything by yourself again? Where would we have been if you'd had to go into that water plant by yourself 2 days ago? The longer we stand around here arguing, the more likely they're going to regroup enough to get him out of there. So how about you stop pulling this damn lone wolf shit and just let me have your back?
Carol glared at her, looking for a moment like she was going to argue, but in the end, she simply rolled her eyes in annoyance.
Fine. But I'm leaving now, and you better be serious about that ankle because I'm not letting you slow me down.
Wouldn't dream of it.
Talisa shot an exasperated look at Nabila, who smirked slightly, and she then followed Carol back into the forest. It took them just over 5 minutes to get back to the compound. They headed for the far side where they knew there were overhanging trees that could get them over the wall. As Talisa dropped down inside the wall, she shot a look over at Carol.
That convince you about my ankle?
Carol rolled her eyes again.
Don't gloat. It's obnoxious.
As they made their way around one of the pallets of grain stacked against the fence, they both jumped violently. They had run straight into Morgan, who leveled his stick at them before realizing who it was and pulling it back.
They don't have enough people to guard the walls.
Carol explained, nodding vaguely towards the one they'd just jumped.
No, but they do have people.
They watched as 3 saviors walked down the road with rifles slung over their backs.
They have Ezekiel. I saw him. They got him on the other side of this place. We can take them out one by one.
No. If we miss one of them, that could call them all.
She's right, Morgan. It's better to just avoid them until we can't.
Henry's here too.
Both women's heads snapped to him.
What?
Where? Did you see him? Do they have him?
I saw him run this way, then he was gone. But he'll hide. He won't take them on face to face.
Carol nodded and took a deep breath, looking around the compound.
We have to do this now. If we have to take them out, we take them out.
You sure about this, Morgan?
He was staring out at the compound with a resolute expression. He nodded in response, and then ran out across the empty field. Talisa shot Carol a wary glance, and they both followed quickly behind him. They made their way across to the first row of barracks and stole along the porch in the shadows until they reached the end. The alley between their building and the next had several still-burning oil drums in it. And there were 5 or 6 saviors there with fire extinguishers trying to put it out.
If we don't go through them, we gotta go through the courtyard, exposed.
So this is it?
This is it.
Carol pulled a switchblade out of her boot and handed her buck knife to Talisa. Morgan walked directly out into the alley, and the men turned to look at him. He took out the first easily by stabbing him through the chest with his stick. 2 more came at him, but Carol and Talisa had slipped around behind them and dispatched them quickly with their knives. Talisa grabbed one of their guns and caught the fourth in the back of the head with the butt of it, making him crumple to the ground. Morgan caught the last man in the chest with the side of his stick, throwing him back as he tried to catch his breath. Morgan lifted the stick to deal the death blow, but hesitated.
You want me to do it?
No.
He looked back at the man, wincing slightly as he steeled himself for what he needed to do. Despite what he said, Talisa almost stepped forward to kill the man for him. But then he moved, driving the stick through the man's chest and pushing him back so he fell in a heap on the ground. Talisa jumped slightly as Morgan spun and did the same to the man she'd knocked unconscious, who was laying at their feet.
Had to get 'em all. They could have found Henry.
Okay, makes sense.
We're not worried about them.
Carol assured him, and he nodded before walking up the steps of the next building.
I'm starting to get the sense that regulation and moderation may not be Morgan's strong suits.
Carol shot him a dark look as she answered.
You're not wrong. But he's all we have. I don't know about you, but if him taking out everyone and everything that steps in front of him gets us to Ezekiel, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Carol picked up a handgun with a silencer and a rifle off the dead saviors and handed the latter to Talisa, who shrugged slightly.
You make an excellent point.
They both climbed the steps to follow him. They ran down the porch and found the next alley empty. They could see the light from trucks parked at the backside of the building and headed in that direction, but Morgan suddenly stopped. The voices of saviors floated back to them from the front of the building they'd just come from.
Leave it. We're past them.
Carol whispered fiercely to him, but he shook his head and turned back. Carol cursed angrily under her breath as she and Talisa tore back down the alley as well. Morgan got the first one before he even knew what hit him, but the second reached for his walkie. Talisa raised her knife, but Carol was faster with the handgun. They both looked at Morgan in frustration.
I said to leave it.
Morgan simply shook his head and walked back down the alley. Talisa grabbed the walkie off the second man.
Now at least we can hear what's happening.
They made their way down the street and saw that Gavin had Ezekiel sitting in the back of a truck a few hundred yards away. There were 6 saviors loading various items into the truck around him. Morgan made to step out, but Talisa grabbed his arm.
Wait a damned minute. I get that you're determined to end this thing once and for all, but we have to make the right play here. You charging in there could get him killed.
She's right, Morgan. We have to play this right. Ezekiel is the objective. If he dies during the attack, this was all for nothing. We need the element of surprise.
The radio in Talisa's hand crackled to life.
Duke, Polly, where are you?
When no one answered, Gavin spoke again.
Stop picking your dingles, grab your walkie, and respond.
Talisa looked up warily at the other two as the walkie stayed silent.
Gomez?
There was a tone of suspicion in his voice now.
Gomez, you there?
Shit. So much for the element of surprise.
Fan out.
They all took off in different directions. Talisa headed left, and she only gotten about 30 feet when a savior came around a pile of crates, and she dove behind a barrel as he fired off several rounds at her. She jumped up and fired back, clipping him in the shoulder. More gunfire sounded in the courtyard, and she ran back just in time to see Gavin and a half-dozen saviors dragging Ezekiel back into the auditorium. She ran out to where Carol and Morgan were still firing on them.
What now?
She ducked as Carol fired a round past her left ear. She looked over her shoulder just in time to see one more savior crumple.
Hey, thanks.
Anytime.
Carol turned back to the building.
They're going to have all the entrances covered. No way in. And there's at least twice as many of them as there are of us. Not to mention, they have the firepower.
Yeah, not so sure about that.
Talisa had wandered over to the truck as Carol was speaking and lifted the lid on one of the crates. She now held up a hand grenade and smirked.
So, who wants to be on distraction detail and who wants to be on offense?
A few minutes later, after instructing both Carol and Morgan on which tree to climb to get them onto the roof of the building, Talisa snuck along the side of the porch and peeked into the atrium. She was instantly relieved to see it was empty. The saviors seemed to have decided to guard the inner doors instead of the outer. That was their first piece of good luck as far as the plan was concerned. And the second came quickly after as she realized they'd left one of the outer doors open, obviously assuming they wouldn't be stupid enough to attempt a rescue by waltzing through the main doors and down the aisle. She crept through it and then moved in the shadows until she reached the double doors on the far side of the atrium. She looked down her watch, keeping a careful count. 10 minutes, that was what they agreed on. It would give Carol and Morgan plenty of time to climb up and sneak down to the stage from the back without being seen. Talisa was in the small vestibule space between the inner and outer doors to the auditorium entrance now. One of the double doors stood open, and an armed savior was standing just on the other side of it. His shadow stretched across the shaft of light in front of her, and she could hear Gavin speaking on the other side of the door, not far away.
Shut up about that, okay? This is it. It's too late. I'm the author and you're the dead man, and that's how it's gonna be. You think I can be someone else? This is who I am. I live. You die. This is what it is.
There was silence for a moment, and then Ezekiel spoke. Talisa felt a burst of warmth in her heart at his voice. He had regained the conviction she'd heard on the first day she'd met him. She could tell the king had found his voice again.
The petty compromises I made to avoid conflict were always done in the name of saving my people's lives. Now I realize I was actually saving yours. No more.
Talisa looked down at her watch. It was time. She yanked the grenade from her pocket and pulled the pin, standing and tossing it through the doorway, and then diving against the wall to cover her head.
What the...
The man was cut off as the explosion ripped through the room. Talisa jumped up and ran to the door. She couldn't see anything in the cloud of dust, but suddenly she saw the flashes of guns from the stage and knew Morgan and Carol had appeared. The saviors began returning the gunfire, and through the smoke, she saw Ezekiel dive between the auditorium seats a few rows down. She ran and dropped, sliding on the smooth linoleum until she reached his row and crawled along it until they were face to face.
Hey, handsome, come here often?
He grinned at her.
It is good to see your face, my lady.
Brought you a present.
She pulled another handgun out of the waistband of her pants and handed it to him.
Shall we come to our friend's aid?
Indeed.
They both stood up, him with the handgun and her with the rifle, and began firing on the saviors from behind. It only took them a few seconds to realize they were being attacked from both sides, but it was still too late. Gavin, who'd been towards the back of the room, took off running when he saw he'd lost. Talisa spun and got a shot off at him, but she only clipped his shoulder as he stumbled out of the room. Morgan leapt off the stage and charged after him.
Morgan!
Carol hopped off the stage to follow him, but Talisa raised a hand.
You stay with Ezekiel, I've got him.
By the time she got outside, Morgan had Gavin trapped between the side of the building, and the truck and his stick was leveled at him.
Morgan, stop. It's over. He's not a threat to us anymore. He gets to make a choice, remember? We take him prisoner so he has a chance to make a better choice.
Can't. Has to be this way. Has to be all of them.
No, it doesn't. He's alone. He can't hurt us or Henry.
Morgan shook his head again and raised the stick. Gavin backed up until his back was pressed against the wall of the building.
Only a sick man would do it like this. You think I wanted this? I ran a good crew, you ask Ezekiel. I kept my word.
Morgan, please make a different choice.
You could go back to the Hilltop. It's still standing.
They're keeping them going.
He's right, Morgan. Just let him go. Let him run back to Negan like the rat he is. And we'll figure it out from there.
Morgan, I agree with the lady Talisa.
She looked over her shoulder to see that Ezekiel and Carol had come out of the building and were now standing behind her, also carefully assessing the situation. Gavin rolled his eyes slightly and took a step to the side, shaking his head at them.
You think you can beat Negan? You can't.
He took another step back towards the alley, and Morgan moved towards him again.
Look, we can go back to how it was. We can go back.
Morgan, cease this. Relent. Ending him is the coward's way. We've won. We don't have to kill him. He will see what he has wrought, and all of it will be his to live with.
Morgan, stop. You don't want to do this, and you don't have to. You told me, remember? You told me we can be better than them. You said that to me.
It's a choice, Morgan. A choice to give him the chance to choose better. Remember what you said? Every day you're breathing is another chance to make the right choice.
A tear slid down Morgan's cheek and his hands trembled, but he didn't lower the stick.
I can't. I have to.
Gavin opened his mouth to speak again, but suddenly his words were cut off as sharp stick was shoved through his neck from behind. They all watched in shock as he slowly fell forward with a thud, and they saw Henry standing behind him wide-eyed. He looked up at them, almost as if he couldn't believe they were real.
I had to.
Ezekiel moved at once. He strode over and pulled the young boy into his arms, hugging him tightly, and then crouching down to look him in the eye.
Henry, it's all right.
Henry's eyes slid back to the body on the ground, but Ezekiel put a hand on the side of his face and brought his gaze back to him.
Don't look at him. You look at me. It is all right.
I had to.
Ezekiel nodded in understanding.
You were supposed to stay at the cottage. That's what you were supposed to do. This wasn't for you to handle.
Carol.
Ezekiel gave her a pointed look before wrapping his arms around Henry and hugging him tightly.
All will be resolved, Henry. Fear not.
He looked up at the others.
What do you propose should be our next move?
He said Hilltop's still standing. It'll be a risk getting from here to there, but the Saviors aren't expecting us to get out. Gonna take a few hours for them to regroup as it is, and they don't have the numbers they used to. I say we grab that bus, stop by Carol's old place to pick up the rest of our people, and then go see if Hilltop fared any better than we did. With any luck, the people from Alexandria are headed that way too.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Ezekiel kept one arm around Henry, but he reached the other out and grasped Talisa's shoulder.
The loyalty and sacrifice you've shown for me and my people in the short time since you have arrived will not soon be forgotten, Talisa Prince. You have proven yourself a true and brave lady of the kingdom, and I thank you for it.
You're welcome, Your Majesty.
With taking back roads and going slowly to make sure they weren't seen, it took them almost all night to reach Hilltop. They pulled up to the gates in the twilight just before dawn, and Ezekiel leaned out to wave to the guards in the tower. The gates opened, allowing them entry, and Talisa saw the residents crowding around. Her heart leapt as she saw Jerry running down from the main house. Nabila gave a gasp of joy and launched herself out of the bus and into his arms before it had even fully stopped moving.
Hey, baby.
He looked over her shoulder to where the others were getting off the bus.
Everybody okay? Saviors get anybody?
Not one.
Talisa shot a look over at Ezekiel, who grinned in response. Maggie and Jesus were coming down the hill, and as soon as Maggie got to Talisa, she pulled her into her arms to hug her tightly.
You okay?
I'm good. Carol had my back and we got everyone out. You guys?
We lost one. His name was Neil, but Alexandria...
Do we know anything yet?
No, but it's bad. Simon said that's where Negan was going himself. Said he was going to level it.
Talisa took a deep breath and nodded. She looked around in the early morning light and noticed something odd that had definitely not been there before.
So, things have developed here since we last spoke, huh?
She nodded towards the large pen in the corner of the yard that held at least 30 men sitting on the ground or walking around restlessly.
Morgan and Jesus brought them in. They were part of a chain gang that got overrun by walkers during the attack. Figured prisoners to trade are never a bad thing to have.
And Gregory?
Talisa saw him sitting against the fence near the gate, his gray day suit crumpled and stained.
He tried to sell us out to the Saviors. Was in the compound when we attacked and tried to get Hilltop to stand down.
Believe me, he got off easy compared to what some of the people around here wanted to do to him.
Sounds like we've got a lot to catch up on.
We certainly do. Come on, let's go up to the house.
They headed up the hill and through the front doors. Maggie turned left into what Talisa knew to be Gregory's office. As soon as she walked through the door, she saw that was no longer the case. The changes were subtle: fresh flowers on the desk, the knitted blanket thrown across the sofa, the heavy curtains being taken off the windows to allow the room to flood with natural light. This was Maggie's office now. Talisa raised her eyebrows as she looked into the corner next to Maggie's desk. There was a crib there, holding a little baby girl who couldn't have been more than 8 months old.
I hate to break it to you, but I think your office assistant may have lied about her age on her application.
Maggie gave her a tired smile in response.
This is Gracie. She was living in one of the outposts when we got there, and we couldn't very well leave her behind.
She's a savior baby?
Yes, she is.
Maggie sat down heavily behind her desk and looked over at her with a smile.
Can I hold her?
Be my guest.
Talisa walked over and picked up the little girl who looked up at her shyly.
Hey there, baby girl. You sure are a pretty little thing.
She bounced the baby on her hip, swaying slightly, and looked out the window where she could just see the edge of the pen that held the saviors.
Guess this one earned slightly better conditions than the others, huh?
Maggie sighed heavily and put her face in her hands.
I don't know what to do. I can't let them go. I can't kill them without cause. And every day they're here, they're a strain on our already dwindling supplies. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Stresses of being a leader coming in full swing then?
Maggie looked up at her with an unamused expression.
You have no idea. Besides, I wasn't supposed to be doing this whole leadership thing on my own. I was supposed to be part of a committee with you and Rick and Michonne and Eugene.
She stopped talking and looked up sharply, guilt changing her features.
Oh, God, I forgot. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Talisa kept her focus on the baby as she spoke, purposefully avoiding Maggie's eye.
Saves me from wondering if you guys found out yet.
Aaron and Enid got back last night, and Aaron told us, Talisa, I don't even know what to say, except that I'm so sorry, and you deserve so much more.
Thanks. You know, in his own messed up way, I know he didn't think he was betraying me, but the fact that he could just turn his back on everyone but me, not only betray all the people that protected him, but actually think I'd back that play and go with him. He's just not the person that I thought he was.
My daddy always said, doesn't matter what a man says, it's what he does that counts.
When someone shows you who they are, believe them, and trust the pattern, not the person. They taught us both those things in my psych residency, I guess. I just wanted to believe he could change. I was naive.
You were in love. We always want to believe the best of the people we love. Doesn't make you foolish. Makes him an idiot for giving up love like that.
Talisa smiled and reached down to take her hand and squeeze it.
I've really missed you.
I've missed you too.
Maggie jumped slightly and put a hand against her stomach, and Talisa looked down at her curiously.
I started feeling the baby a few days ago. It's just little flutters right now, but it's nice.
It's not just nice, it's amazing.
There was a knock on the door, and a woman Talisa had yet to meet poked her head in.
Oh, sorry, I'll come back.
No, it's fine, Diane. Talisa was with me in Alexandria on the council. She's family, and I trust her.
All right.
Diane stepped into the office, holding out a small ledger.
Bertie and I finished the inventory.
How bad is it?
By our count, you're going to have to cut rations by a third again just to make it through the week.
Maggie sighed again as she looked down at the book.
Does this number include the prisoners?
Diane looked at her sympathetically.
It's worse when you include the prisoners.
Well, Jesus just left to go scavenging. He could bring something back.
Diane nodded and turned to leave. Maggie looked back at Talisa with a tired, worried expression.
Want to put your leader hat back on and help me sort this out?
Well, I can't really speak for the people here when I don't know them, but I'm always happy to be your sounding board. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm thinking. Most of the men in that cage would kill my people as soon as look at them. So why the hell am I risking people I care about dying to keep them alive? And I'm thinking the time to make hard choices is here, and I just don't know if I'm strong enough.
You are. You're one of the strongest people I've ever known.
In some ways, that scares me more. I'm afraid of the person that I have to be to lead people in this world.
She looked up at Talisa now.
I killed one of them last night. I pulled him from that pen and shot him in the chest. I justified it by telling myself I picked one of the bad ones, one I knew would have killed us if he could. But I killed him in cold blood, and I don't feel bad about it. Simon killed one of my people last night to show me that they're serious. So I killed one of theirs. I sent him back to Negan in a box to show him I won't be backed into a corner.
Talisa smirked slightly, and Maggie gave her a questioning look.
Sorry, it's just... That's so badass. Rick would be proud of you.
I know he would. And the thing is, I don't feel guilty about doing it. It needed to be done. But I think about my daddy, about what he'd say if he were here.
Hey.
Talisa reached out to take her hand again.
From what you told me, your dad wasn't the type of man to shy away from hard choices in the interest of taking care of the people he loves. The world is ugly right now. Sometimes it means we have to do ugly things.
I don't want to be ugly. I have to find a better way, a better future for...
Maggie brushed her hand across her stomach.
Your baby is why we have to do this. So by the time that baby gets here, the world is a better, safer place than it is right now. Think of it this way. Is there anything you wouldn't do for that baby to keep them safe and happy?
Maggie smiled at her and shook her head slightly.
Have I mentioned that I have really, really missed you?
Talisa grinned.
It might have come up.
Eugene took a moment to steady his breathing before he stepped into the conference room. The irony was not lost on him that he had initially joined up with the Saviors under the assertion that as long as he was with them, he would never have to live in fear. Yet the last week of his life had found him just as fearful as he'd ever been, if not more so. The situation was made infinitely worse, as now, along with the fear, he was also plagued by a loneliness and depression so profound it felt as if there was a deep black pit in his very core that every day threatened more and more to swallow him whole. As he stepped into the room, he saw Negan sitting in the seat at the end of the table, facing away from him. Eugene tried not to let his eyes wander to Lucille, sitting on the edge of the table. No matter how long he was in Negan's presence, the bat never ceased to fill him with dread. Just the sight of it brought horrible thoughts to his mind, memories of what it had done, and dread of all it could still do. He shook his head slightly, banishing the images as Negan finally spoke.
I'm disappointed, Eugene. This crap was supposed to be behind us. 2 flushes and out the pipe. And to top it all off, my only doctor and that creepy-ass priest managed to jump ship without anybody knowing about it.
Negan spun slowly in the chair to face him and fixed him with his most piercing look.
You have any idea how something like that could happen, Eugene?
No, I could not venture to guess.
Eugene hoped his voice was much steadier than he felt. Negan stared at him, watching his face carefully. After another moment that seemed to stretch on forever, he smiled slightly and leaned back in the chair again.
Carson was never one of us. He was a weasel, just like his weasel brother. That's my best stab at it.
Drawing together associations and behaviors, I'd say that's a solid stab.
Well, once their asses get caught and dragged back here.
He looked back at Eugene pointedly.
And mark my words, they will be. I'm gonna get the whole story out of them. You can bet on that.
Eugene fought hard against the swoop of dread that went through him. He cleared his throat and opened his mouth to ask the question that the logical side of his mind was shouting at him for even considering. For better or worse, he had to know.
Alexandria, what went down there?
Do you care?
Negan looked up at him with a hard, challenging expression.
I mean it, Eugene. Do you care? After they tried to blow you off the face of this earth, after the woman who claimed to love you looked you in the eye as she told them to press the detonator?
Eugene looked down quickly. He didn't want Negan to see how deeply his words had affected him. In fact, the look on Talisa's face when she'd told Rosita to press that button had been replaying in his mind for days.
Your message is stamped received and very much appreciated.
Oh, well, good.
Negan stood up, smacking the table as he did and making Eugene flinch.
I got some news for you, Eugene. You are going to be in charge of your very own outpost. You see, I need my bullet maker out there making bullets. Cutting a path through the dead took a toll on our reserves. So now you get the honor of providing me with the necessary bang I need to settle this whole situation with Rick.
And all that about people being a resource?
Eugene challenged, finally meeting Negan's eye. Negan raised an eyebrow and fixed him with a smug smile.
Bullets are a last resort. I mean, hell. Lucille here, she gets first dibs. But if Rick and his merry band of pricks decide to pull some shit, then we're gonna have to pull some back that we'd rather not, and that's gonna be on them. Not you, not me.
Eugene tried to suppress a shudder as his eyes found the bat again. Of all the thoughts associated with it, the one that haunted him the most came unbidden to his mind. The image of Lucille coming down on her. Negan walked over to Eugene, putting a hand on his shoulder.
I'm gonna set you up at that machine shop you told me about. You're gonna have a full security detail at your disposal. Everything you need to keep your head in the game. Hell, I'll even send Tanya to cook for you. Did you know that gal was a chef?
I pictured her more in social services, possibly management.
He thought about the idea of leaving, of getting out of the four walls of his room that felt more like a prison with each passing day. The idea of not seeing Negan every day, of not seeing Lucille. Having a project that he could throw himself into and simply turn off his mind as far as anything, but his objective was concerned. He realized he wanted it more than he'd wanted anything since he'd walked through the doors of the compound. He looked back up at Negan.
Will there be wine?
Negan chuckled and shook his head.
Yes, Eugene, there will be wine.
Hey, how's Henry doing?
Talisa and Carol watched him sitting over by Jerry, who had gotten him a bowl of oatmeal.
He says he's fine, but he's also trying to figure out which one of the saviors killed his brother so he can get revenge. So there's that.
Do you know which one did it?
Yep.
Is it one of the ones in there?
Yep.
And you know you can't tell him that right now, right?
Yep.
They heard the sound of the gate creaking, and they both looked up. As the gates opened, they saw Daryl carrying Judith, Tara, Rosita, Tobin, and a man Talisa didn't recognize. She and Carol ran down the hill to them. Carol threw her arms around Daryl, and Talisa reached for Tara.
Oh my god, it's so good to see you guys. What happened? Where are the others? Is Alexandria?
It's gone. Negan firebombed it. There's nothing left.
And Rick? Michonne?
They're okay. They got out, but they had to stay for...
What about Carl?
Enid was standing next to Maggie, looking at them in fear. Daryl looked over at her, and tears filled his eyes. Talisa felt as if someone had punched her in the chest yet again.
He got bit. Rick and Michonne stayed with him. Until it's done.
No!
Enid collapsed onto the ground, sobbing. Maggie knelt beside her to wrap her arms around her, and Talisa joined her. They both held her tightly as they all cried together. Later that night, Talisa came out of the shower in one of the trailers, still drying her hair. She saw Rosita in the kitchen putting peanut butter on a piece of bread.
Food's so tight here that we can't even get jelly.
Yeah, be grateful we're getting anything. The prisoners aren't.
Can't say I'm feeling very sympathetic towards the saviors these days.
Talisa gave a small huff of agreement.
You know, we never got to talk about it. Everything just went to shit so fast. And then you took off. And then things went to shit again.
I'm sorry. That I didn't tell you about leaving.
It's okay, I get it. Besides, Lord knows you don't owe me anything after what I pulled. He wouldn't even be with them if it wasn't for me.
Talisa looked up at her in surprise.
Rosita, what he did isn't on you. I know I blamed you at first. But this? What he's doing now? Hell, I should be thanking you for helping me see who he really is before things got worse. Can you imagine if we'd been together years and he pulled this? If we'd had kids?
You were thinking about that? Having kids and all of it?
Yeah, I was. I really thought he was it. My second chance. Shows how much I know. You know when I'm really honest with myself? I'm not even sure he understood what it means to love someone. Maybe he just got swept up in the idea of a girl liking him, and finally getting some action and he convinced himself it was love.
Rosita took another bite of her bread and looked at Talisa with a thoughtful expression.
You know, Dwight was out on the road with us for a while. Thought he was going to come all the way here with us, but it didn't work out.
Oh yeah? What happened?
Tara couldn't let it go. Not that any of us blamed her. But yeah, she almost killed him. In the end, she only let him go on the agreement that he left. So he did. The reason I bring it up is because he told us a little more of his story. He had a wife, and they tried to get away, but they couldn't.
Yeah, I know. That's when he took Daryl's crossbow. He told us the story.
Yeah, well, what he didn't say is that when they got back to the Saviors, she became one of Negan's wives to save him. They made the wrong choice, and then he sided with Negan again. And she never forgave him for it. But the thing is, he still loves her. That's why he helped us. In the end, he couldn't do it anymore.
Okay, so what?
Rosita sighed, giving her a sad smile.
I've known Eugene almost since the start, Talisa, and I saw the look on his face when he came back to Alexandria with Negan. It wasn't just hormones, or getting swept up in the moment. He loved you, and he still does. It broke his heart when you told him to leave, and I'm sure he's felt shitty about the choice he made every day since.
He actively helped them get out. He's a big part of the reason Alexandria is gone right now.
I know. And believe me, I'm not excusing anything he's done. I'm disgusted by it. But that's not what we're talking about right now. The things he's doing now, those are the actions of a man who has nothing left to lose because he's lost everything that ever mattered. He's doing it because he cares.
It doesn't matter either way. It doesn't change anything.
It changes how you remember it. When Abraham left me for Sasha, part of what hurt the most was realizing it wasn't real. He never looked at me the way he looked at her. But with you, you can hate him for what he did. Be disappointed with the man he chose to be in the end. That's fair, but don't ever convince yourself that it wasn't real, because it was. Once the dust settles, he's going to have to live with the fact that losing you was the biggest mistake of his life.
Talisa brushed away a tear that had fallen down her cheek and gave a small chuckle.
You know, I never really appreciated how much I needed to talk to you about this stuff. I guess I just figured it would be too hard, being so close to someone who knew him as well as I did, so I pushed you away. But I see now that I needed to talk about it with someone who gets it.
Rosita reached across the counter and gave her hand a squeeze.
I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but we're almost done with this shit. Just a few more days and it will be over, one way or another. And then we'll all figure out together what moving forward looks like.
Talisa nodded and took a deep breath to steady herself.
I like the sound of that.
Rosita gave her a smile and then popped the last bite of bread into her mouth and walked over to the sink to wash off her plate.
By the way, don't think for a second I missed that little Eugene getting some action comment you slipped in a minute ago.
Talisa laughed and shook her head. It felt good to be sitting here talking with her like they had before. It almost felt like her world hadn't fallen apart around her.
Hey, what can I say? What happens in the bedroom of a private jet on a supply run stays in the bedroom of a private jet on a supply run.
Rosita shot her an amused look over her shoulder.
Oh yeah? Private jet, huh? You really know how to treat a boy, right?
Who's treating who, right?
Tara had walked through the door. She hung her coat on the rack next to it and then walked over to sit down next to Talisa.
I'm starving. Do we have any food in here?
We've got exactly 7 slices of bread and half a jar of peanut butter.
Sold.
Rosita put them on the counter in front of her, and Tara began to spread peanut butter across the bread.
So anyway, what were you talking about when I came in?
Eugene and Talisa's sex life before he defected.
Ew, I'm eating.
Hey, rude.
Talisa punched her in the arm.
And besides, that's not what we were discussing because that's not what went down. I said he got action, not that he got lucky.
So what's the distinction?
I am so not answering that. I do not kiss and tell.
I mean, technically you already did tell. She's just asking for specifics about what you were kissing.
Talisa turned to her with an incredulous look.
How are you getting involved in this conversation when you literally just said it grosses you out?
Tara shrugged as she took another bite of bread.
I don't know, it's like a car wreck, I guess. I don't really want to know, but I also can't look away.
Okay, answer me this, and I promise I'll leave the rest of it alone.
I make no promises, but go ahead.
Has Eugene seen you naked?
Tara perked up in interest when the question was asked, turning to see Talisa's reaction. Talisa felt herself blushing, which she was well aware was all the answer either of them needed, as they both grinned. She rolled her eyes as she answered.
Yes, he has.
Oh yeah, take my word for it then. He's completely miserable right now.
You don't know that. You never know. Now that I popped the seal, he could have found a cute savior girl to get frisky with.
The idea of it made her heart burn painfully, and she jumped as Tara lightly smacked her on the back of her head.
Don't be stupid. You've got enough actual stuff to be upset about right now without adding things that are not happening in any way.
When I Fall is a work of fiction based on AMC's The Walking Dead. Any characters not created by the author are the property of said company. The story will continue in the next chapter.